Hi, and welcome to Volume 2 of the Mongoose Press Knowledge is Power Chess series. Today we're going to be looking at a fierce attack by a girl. And you've probably heard of this girl before. She is the two-time women's chess champion, Miss Jennifer Shahade. And the game that we're going to be looking at comes from the 1998 World Open in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, when Jennifer was only 18 years old. And in this game, she plays the white pieces in a Najdorf Sicilian, and she conducts a ferocious attack against the black king, and really shows the power of being able to play like a girl. And I know that a lot of times you hear playing like a girl, and that's taken as an insult, but I have a feeling after you watch this game, you'll think differently. Also, I wanted to mention, in her publication, Play Like a Girl, which is where this position game was taken from, that book features 322 lethal attacks, all conducted by female players, sometimes against very prominent male chess players as their victims. But these queens of the chessboard, they know how to play, and they know how to conduct an attack, just like we're about to look at in this game. So, Jennifer's opponent is Mr. Albert Chow, and he's playing the black pieces. Jennifer has white. She starts the game with 1e4, and he responds with 1c5. This is the Sicilian defense. And the Sicilian defense, from move 1, really seeks to create an imbalanced position on the board, and it prevents white from forming a pawn duo at e4 and d4, at the same time making the position asymmetrical. Because of the imbalanced nature of the Sicilian, this often enables black to play for winning chances, usually on the queen side. And white, in exchange, gets a strong kingside attack, which he'll end up, usually the game will end up mating the black king, or the attack energy will dissipate and it'll go into a favorable endgame for black. Draws are not nearly as prominent in the Sicilian as they are in other popular openings. Knight f3, preparing to thrust the pawn to d4. Pawn d6, d4, c takes d4, knight takes d4. This is the very popular open Sicilian. White has a knight aggressively placed on the 4th rank. He's willingly given up his a center pawn in exchange for this aggressively placed piece, with the hope of utilizing this knight for a kingside attack. Knight f3, knight f6, knight c3, pawn to a6. This is the razor-sharp Najdorf variation. And with pawn f4, the very talented Miss Shahade is already applying some kingside pressure, threatening to play e5 and open up the center, but she's got to do a little bit more development before she's ready for that. Queen c7, knight back to f3. Now, since the queen is placed on c7, white opts to move this knight away from the g1 a7 diagonal. White is actually preparing for an e5 thrust, and this knight's going to help support it, but also white doesn't want to get caught in a pin after castling. For example, after white castles, having a knight on d4 would be very inconvenient if black were to play queen to c5, pinning the knight to the king. So this move has a couple of purposes, and generally speaking, in a game of chess, when a move has more than one purpose, you can almost rest assured that it is a good move. Okay, knight bd7, bishop d3, pawn to g6, castle, bishop g7, queen e1. Now, white is planning to transfer the queen to the king side of the board and launch an assault on the black king, but also the queen on e1 temporarily also helps to support the pawn thrust to e5, which is coming. Pawn to b5. Black launches a counterattack on the queen side, and this type of counterattacking motif is very typical in games featuring the Sicilian opening. Generally speaking, the game boils down to a race, who can achieve their objectives first. And white responds with a very well-timed pawn to e5. There's a chess axiom that an attack on the wing is best met with a counterattack in the center. And so white responds to black's wing play with a very strong pawn break on the e5 square. This move also opens up the center and will give both of white's bishops a direct line to the king side. D takes e5, f takes e5, knight g4, e6 exclamation mark. This is a very strong, very potent move that follows up with the idea that white is basically seized the initiative now. This pawn move damages black's king safety, and all the while all of white's pieces are participating in the assault except for the a1 rook. Meanwhile, black has rooks, a light squared bishop, and an awkwardly placed knight on g4 that are not really participating too much into the game. Black plays f takes e6, and white follows up with queen h4, and the queen storms onto the king side with tempo. Black plays knight df6, and Miss Shahade plays knight e4, just piling on the king side pressure here. You see, whenever you are able to pile on pressure to your opponent, they don't really have too much of an opportunity to organize some counterplay. So instead of continuing with his king side or his queen side plans, black is forced to start taking some countermeasures on the king side because of Miss Shahade's aggressive play. Alright, black castles, and white plays knight to g5. Pawn to h6. Knight takes f6 check. Knight takes f6. Knight back to e4. Queen b6 check, and king h1. Now, here's why the Sicilian is maddening. It always seems like black should get overrun, but black always has amazing resources for defense. And after running this position through a computer, it discovered a very counterintuitive move, bishop to b7 for black. And it actually scores black with a slight edge because he now has all of his pieces aggressively placed. However, according to the Fritz analysis, every other move other than bishop b7, and white has nearly a decisive advantage. So you hear about the Sicilian defense being razor sharp, and that's generally what it means. The game often hangs on in the balance of one move that can either win for you, and while every other move loses for you. So that's why the Sicilian defense is regarded as very exciting and very tactical, very dangerous. But black did not find bishop b7, and I can't blame him. That's a really hard move to find to have a good position here because there's a lot of pressure there on the king side. So instead, black plays g5, and in an attempt to relieve some pressure on his king, black unwittingly invites disaster. So what move do you think? What do you like here in this position? Do you have the guts to play like a girl here, to find the same move that Jennifer Shahade did when she was only 18 years old? And again, only one move in this position does the trick. Every other move fails and gives black a pretty nice advantage. Only one move here is winning. And that move is the one that Jennifer found over the board, and that's bishop takes g5 exclam. The sacrifice on g5 pretty much assures black's destruction. And after h takes g5, knight takes g5, and there's a nice combination of some light square control by the knight and bishop, and of course the queen threatening to come and mate on h7. So of course in this position white is threatening to play rook takes f6, and all kinds of bad things are going to follow for black. So let's take a look at the rest of the game. Rook d8, black sees the trouble coming. Bishop h7 check, and black doesn't really want to play with king h8 and any kind of discovered check threat, so he opts for king to f8. Now here's the decisive moment in the game. See if you can find the winning move in this particular position, just like Jennifer Shahade had to find over the board during a very exciting and high-stress game. So why don't you pause the video and see if you can find the move that's absolutely winning here for white. Okay, the move that leads to victory is Queen h5, taking advantage of the pin on the knight on f6. Sometimes pins are hard to spot, especially if you're on the assault. But Aaron Nimzovich once said that the defensive power of a pin piece is imaginary, and that's certainly the case. It appears like black is covering the h5 square with the knight, but of course that's not true because he's pinned. So the queen steps into h5, and there's nothing that black can really do to avoid mate. He can throw in a spite check on g1 with the queen, but other than that, it's basically a forced mate in one here. So Mr. Chow courageously plays bishop d7, allowing his opponent the satisfaction of a checkmate. Queen f7, checkmate. Very lovely game by a very lovely woman, showing exactly what it means to play like a girl. And this game kind of stuck out to me because I've always had trouble playing the white side of the Sicilian defense, and it's really nice to see a very well thought out, organized, ferocious attack. So the next time someone says to you, hey, you play like a girl, you can recall watching this video and you can very calmly tell them, thank you, I appreciate the compliment.